They want that. They want a person. They don't want a team. They want to interface with a person. And that role is really important. But often it's not well thought through. We don't match staff properly. We don't say, we've asked you to be key worker for Mary because your skills are like this, in these needs, and we think you'll really support it extraordinarily well. We just go, how many people are you named nurse for? One? Well, you can have another. That happens too much in services, and it's the same with key workers. You know, it's not a well thought through process. And then this bit about listening and responding to people, and not confusing them with jargon and bamboozling them with words that, you know, don't mean anything. You know, if I'm a service user, I want to know what treatment means. What does it really mean? What am I consenting to or not? You know, people do that kind of blinding people with science stuff, and then they can't be challenged. Delivering person-centred care, these were some of the key lessons from the other services. And again, I think the shades of Winterbourne are within them. Increasing ways to hear people's voice. Now, again, I'll often hear people say, well, this group don't go to local self-advocacy forums, you know, because they're detained and it's really difficult to get them to come. Well, bring them to them then. You know, I had a conversation last week. I'm bringing Karen Flood in to them. I'll bring people in if they can't go somewhere because, you know, they're on section whatever and Home Office has got, you know, nervousness about it, then bring people into them. People need to have strong role models and advocates. They need to see what's possible. They need to know what it means to speak out. They need to see what power really means, you know, in action. We all need role models. Why would people and families be any different? Supporting people to have good knowledge and information. I'm still a fan of this expert patient, expert carer stuff. I know it's died a death in some places. Can you remember the programmes that we had in place? And I think it's worth resurrecting for people. I think if people really understand about their condition, it puts them in a really powerful place. You know, if I've got learning disability and bipolar and I'm part of an expert patient group and I've learnt lots about it, then I can challenge you about my medication. So, you know, thinking about how we do that, and same for carers. And again, it goes without saying, ensuring materials are accessible, but often they're not, even though we know this. And we've hopefully been role modelling it since about 2001 through government policy. Getting accessible materials, it's not that easy in some services. And ensuring people know their rights. Easier said than done. But if you know you're right, and it's not okay for you to shout at me, it's not okay for you to tell me what to do in that manner, then it makes you more powerful. Often people, as we know, with learning disabilities are acquiescent. They will comply. And families are too worn out, too tired as well, and often comply. People need to know their rights. We need to be very clear about that for people. Meaningful day. But I like this picture of this young woman because I think it's, you know, it's right on girl, you know, engineering. That's kind of meaningful day, isn't it, to get a job in engineering if you're a woman. If you've got Down syndrome, it's even more powerful. Fantastic. We need to build skills. I mean, you know, so people in inpatient provision, you would hope are there for that reason, that they've got some kind of distress through a psychological issue or psychiatric need. These skills that are listed here are just a few, but for me these are the basic ones. Person-centred active support's critical, you know. Otherwise you hear people say, don't you, well, I've asked him to join this group and he won't come. He won't get off sofa. You know, well, we need to try a bit harder and we need to engage with programmes that are A, interesting for people, but B, give staff the tools to do something that's more meaningful than saying, well, we're doing this activity and you don't want to be in room with us. Positive behavioural support, intensive interaction, and communication. You know, people with autism, people with Asperger's, a lot of the staff caring with them have had nothing, not just in healthcare, in social care. Families get offered very little training, very little. You know, we really disrespect that, in that we put training, if we do put training on, it's often just for staff or paid carers. Environment and facilities. I don't know if you're familiar with the King's Fund's work on healing environments. I think it's a really good project if you get a chance to have a look at it. I think that we have to remember the healing aspect of the environment, and the King's Fund work really gives some life to that, you know, and some kind of positive and practical examples for you to look at. But having space is important. It is really important, and space to do activities is critical, and that includes good garden space. You know, I like the great outdoors, but I do think there is something very therapeutic about being in greenery and hearing birds and smelling grass and all that kind of thing. So being on an industrial estate is not entirely conducive to that. I think for the workforce, there are some key lessons, again, I would ask of other services and other providers, if you like. What does the induction look like? It's your first point of contact with people. It's your last chance probably to wheedle people out. If you do think you've made an error, you know, on interview, we've all probably fell for it. I have in 30 years. I've employed people and thought, that's not the person I met at interview. So it gives you a chance. One of the things we do is put people on a probation as well, just to check them out, just to make sure that service users really like them, because that gives them obviously then exposure to people. So, you know, we want obviously the best people at induction, but after that there are other checking points that we can test that out. Robust preceptorship, induction and clinical supervision, you know, these are things that have been said for so many, in so many reports. You know, we've really got to make them happen, and they can be made to happen. This is not difficult. I am not some kind of like, you know, super person or somebody who's away with fairies either. You can make this stuff happen. We're already making it happen now, only, you know, a year after. It's not perfect, but it's happening. I think the knowledge skills frameworks are absolutely critical, but again, critical in the terms of making people accountable and checking that they've got the right skills to deliver. And in all of that, involving people and families. One of the things I'm involved in at the minute is how we involve people and families in people's individual 360 appraisals. Can be a bit of a shock for them, won't it? But it'll be interesting. And networking. I mean, there's no reason. People say, well, staffing, costs, getting people to events. There's so many electronic networks now, you know, that you can join things without having to move from your desk. I'm not suggesting that's the only way, but you can stay in touch with what's happening electronically. When I looked at the organisational structure last year, there were some key issues for me that I thought needed attending to straight away. And they're very straightforward things, but again, seem to be difficult to achieve in lots of services. For me, patient care and outcomes must be the focus of board level discussion and communication. Believe you me, any board that I am at, if governance and patient safety is not the first item on the agenda before money, then I'm not, you know, playing nicely basically. It has to be there. That is what we're there for. We're there to deliver care. The other bits are what I call supporting functions. You know, I'm interested in HR and I'm interested in, you know, what the Director of Finance has got to say and all of that. But what we're all here for is to do this, to deliver high quality care. What they're all here for is to support that. So there's something really being really clear about that. Robust management supervision, again, if you're not doing your job, well, we'll help you. And if we've helped you and you're still not doing your job, well, then you know where the door is. I think we have to be very clear with people about that, absolutely, and not dodge it. And it's good for other staff. Other staff don't want managers above them who they think are inept, hopeless, useless. You know, it's bad for morale, it's bad for them, it's bad for their professional development because that person ain't going to get promoted, which means they're not either. You know, we don't want people who are clock watching, marking time. People need to deliver. All meetings to be purposeful. Stop fanning about in meetings where, you know, all we do is go around an agenda and nothing's achieved, and particularly in CPA meetings, particularly in them, you know. And if I see the word ongoing against anybody's care plan, that's just enough to tip me over the edge. You know, if somebody says, if I say, well, you know, care plan 3, where are we with that? Oh, it's ongoing. Don't think it is. Let's revisit that one, shall we? Shall we just have a conversation about that? Because you see, don't you, year on year, ongoing. Either that person's not getting better because whatever we think's wrong with them's not actually what's wrong with them, if you like, you know, they've not got that mental health problem that we thought they had. Or the care we deliver is rubbish, you know, or it's not, you know, you might wrap it up and say, well, you know, our interventions are not effective.